there are reasons to be concerned because of some things that are done from within small segments of the Muslim community. It's only a few months ago that a prominent left-wing Muslim journalist in this country said that anti-Semitism in parts of the Muslim community in Britain is rife and commonplace.
Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. Hope you are feeling good. Today we are going to be checking out a video where a feminist tried to frame and cancel Douglas Murray up. I know Douglas is always going to stand for the truth, so let's check it out. Go.
In a classic debate a few years ago, Douglas Murray appeared in a debate on Channel 4 News where the journalist tried to misrepresent his words in an attempt to cancel him. The journalist clearly did not know who he was dealing with and got the shock of her career. Douglas Murray did not hold back. Watch.
Why is it that a lot of people don't seem to feel at ease about Islam? As the chap in the report there that Katie Razzle interviewed said, there's always a negative. There's a kind of code in various newspapers, TV, that it's something to be feared, whether it's British Muslims going out to fight in Syria, or TV broadcasters erroneously saying that Woolwich attackers had a Muslim appearance.
Well, sure, but I mean, Woolwich attackers, for instance, did say that what they were doing was in the name of Allah. And you can't blame people for noticing that, in the same way you can't blame people for noticing news stories that go on, like people from Britain, born and brought up in Britain, going out to Syria to fight jihad in Syria. You can't blame the general public for noticing these things, and I think you should not blame the media for reporting them. The question again and again comes down to this thing as if people who notice these things are the problem. Now, of course, there will be some people who'll notice those things, who'll say terrible things and try to do some terrible things in response. But the problem is not the story. The problem we have as a country is, what do we do with this information going forward? And that's why
are you suggesting that the government should somehow engineer the birth rate? Well,
no, government isn't able to become a prophylactic device. I mean, the point about this is that there is significant public concern for this reason. The children that are born today and the religious communities they are born into are likely to have a very significant impact on the country tomorrow. And there are reasons for people in this country, including prominent Muslims who have spoken about this, there are reasons to be concerned because of some things that are done from within small segments of the Muslim community. It's only a few months ago that a prominent left-wing Muslim journalist in this country said that anti-Semitism in parts of the Muslim community in Britain is rife and commonplace. We've just seen in recent weeks, Channel 4 has led the way in the story of gender segregation at universities.
Okay.
30 years ago, you would not have thought that we would be discussing religiously based gender segregation because of the religious minority.
Let me put that to Ali. There is a public policy implications there. Segregation in universities is one point. Wearing the veil where that's appropriate to wear the veil is another.
Well, it's really interesting listening to Douglas getting carried away with himself once again over these issues. Essentially, if you replaced the word Muslim with Jewish or with black and minority ethnic when Douglas was speaking, that would have a very different, profound implication on what he's saying. That's not to say that there aren't issues within the Muslim community on a number of fronts, but there are issues in many communities, and what we must do is not caricature and blame everybody in the name of
the Jewish or Hindu birth rate behaving badly.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. The point is, and this can't be emphasized enough, if two Jewish British people had hacked the head off a British soldier earlier last year, that would have brought a lot of insight and a lot of interrogation into the Jewish communities of this country.
But the Jewish Hindu birth rate doesn't hit the headlines, does it? Let's address that point.
My point is, again, the facts matter. We cannot have a debate about this if we say everything that matters must be taken off the table, and everything that is by the wayside is what we'll concentrate on.
I'm not saying that. I think it's entirely right for the media to report on facts. It's very important that people like you are responsible in how you use that information. Well, and all of us have a responsibility.
Okay, here's a fact for you on that point. 140 Muslim faith schools, which some say increase segregation. There's almost as many Jewish faith schools. You don't hear about that so much. Are you as concerned about Jewish faith schools?
I absolutely think you do. And if I just go back to the point I made, if Jews on campuses in this country were demanding that men and women had to sit separately in events on public space, I would have a problem with that as well, and I would state that problem. It comes back to the same thing. If you ignore the facts and say the facts can't be reported, if you say the Times can't talk about the census, whatever the timing, it means that newspapers at no stage, whether it's right after a census or a year after a census, can report the facts. I think the facts matter, and I think that the way in which we see our future as a country, we have to have these facts injected into that debate. And yes, if any other minority had this problem, I would raise it about that as well.
I'm afraid we've run out of time for facts now.
The journalist tried to frame and cancel Douglas Murray by claiming that he supports and promotes things that Douglas Murray did not actually say. This is way too often in mainstream media today. Douglas Murray underscores a crucial aspect of the discourse surrounding terrorism in the UK, the imperative of open and honest dialogue about the ideological motivations behind terrorist acts, particularly when these acts are committed in the name of Islam. Murray's position is that the avoidance of discussing the motivations behind terrorism, especially when attackers themselves cite their interpretation of Islam as their justification, impedes a comprehensive understanding of the threat and hinders the development of effective counterterrorism strategies. He advocates for a distinction between criticizing ideas or actions motivated by a particular interpretation of Islam and casting aspersions on Muslims as a whole. Statistics and reports on terrorism in the UK and other Western countries underscore the relevance of Murray's argument. According to the Global Terrorism Index, a significant proportion of terrorist attacks in the West have been carried out by individuals or groups claiming Islamic motivations. This data does not suggest that Islam inherently promotes violence, but that a radical interpretation of it has been a factor in numerous incidents. Addressing this fact openly is essential for understanding and countering the threat. Other public figures and scholars have echoed Murray's call for open dialogue. Majid Nawaz, a former Islamist who now works to counter extremism, has spoken about the importance of distinguishing between Islam as a faith and Islamism as a political ideology. Ayan Hirsi Ali, a human rights activist, has also emphasized the need for reform within Islam and the importance of confronting extremism directly. Douglas Murray's dialogue is crucial for developing effective counterterrorism measures, protecting the rights and safety of all citizens, and fostering a society where difficult issues can be discussed openly and constructively.
Oh, wow. What an interesting debate. We can all tell that the politician, the lady in question, she's not being intellectually honest. She tried to frame and cancel Douglas Murray, and she feels Douglas is becoming Islamophobic, and Douglas is only interested about the problem happening in the Islam communities among Muslims, that Douglas is not interested in talking about the problem happening among the Jews. And I believe Douglas gave her a very good answer by telling her that they are talking about fact, and fact is based on what is happening. That it's very difficult for them to hear that Jews are killing people or Jews are bombing places, but it's different for the Islam, is different for the Muslim communities. And I totally understand what Douglas is trying to say in this video. We all know Douglas have always been talking about the problem of Islam fundamentalists, the problem of extremism, that living in a society, you have no right not to be offended. And when you feel offended by what someone say, you don't have to resort to violence in order to in order to prove your point. There are better ways of addressing issues whereby you are uncomfortable with what someone say. You can counter what the person say with a better idea, or engage in a dialogue or engage in a debate with the person in order to be able to prove your point to the person. Like we all know, violence have no place in any society, and that's what Douglas is trying to address in this video, that we should be talking about, we should be stating facts about the problem we are having, and majorly the problem Douglas is talking about is the problem of Islamist extremism and Islamic fundamentalists. And we can all tell the lady tried to dodge the issue, dodge the facts by accusing Douglas of being Islamophobic, that Douglas is trying to only talk about the problem that is happening among the Muslim community, among Islam, and ignoring the problem that is happening among other community like the Jews, which I believe that is totally wrong. If there's a problem among the Jews that is affecting the country as a whole, I believe Douglas will be ready to talk about the problem. But here we are having a problem among Islam, among the Muslim, that is affecting the entire community. I believe they should also be open to talk about it instead of accusing Douglas of being Islamophobic, accusing Douglas of only being interested in talking about the problem that is happening among the Muslim community, among Islam, and ignoring the problem among the Jews. I feel that is totally uncalled for, that is totally unacceptable. If there is a problem to be talked about, they should be ready to talk about the problem and find solution to the problem instead of them trying to dodge the question, which I feel that is totally unacceptable. I've really learned a lot listening to Douglas and also listening to every one of the speakers. I would also like to hear your opinion on the facts that Douglas have stated. Keep the comments coming. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the like button. Do have a nice day. Yeah.